Well, hello and welcome to I Love Gay today. And for those of you who were with us last month when we interviewed the folks with Out in the Ring, the documentary about LGBT life and pro wrestling, well, we have a treat for you because today we have with us Pollo Del Mar, who has got herself amazingly dressed up just for us. How are you?
I am absolutely delightful. I'm so glad to be back with you and getting to show the alternate side of myself, the side that I think that a lot of people know a little bit better now.
Well, we had such an amazing time the first time. So, what could go wrong?
There's nothing that can go wrong. I mean, and even if it does go wrong, it's a drag queen's like skill set to make it look like it's going right.
I love this. But no, you have a lot going on that's kind of outside of just what that documentary touched on. But there's an organization, the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got this huge history with them, including being the first drag personality in their history as well.
So we talked last time about Out in the Ring, and for those of you who are not familiar, it's an incredible new documentary film by Rye Levy, the director, which is making film festival rounds right now. It talks about and showcases this long and storied history of contributions and participation in the world of pro wrestling by LGBTQ plus people. But the thing was, so much of that was like a don't ask, don't tell, like off camera type of thing. And they were accepted for who they were largely, but it wasn't portrayed that way. So one of the organizations that is talked about in that is the National Wrestling Alliance, which is the oldest continuous professional wrestling organization in the world. And as a child, I grew up, Matt, watching the National Wrestling Alliance because I grew up in the South where pro wrestling is very, very big. Yeah. And the National Wrestling Alliance was the wrestling there. So it was like an honor and a privilege to, number one, get to work with the NWA in general, but to be the first anything in the world of professional wrestling in the world, to get to be the first of something in the world is pretty challenging. But last August, 2021, I appeared on the NWA all women's pay-per-view called Empower. Okay. And that particular like appearance by me with Jamie Senegal, another professional wrestler, she became the first transgender athlete in the NWA's history. And with my appearance as her manager, I became the first drag personality in the world of professional wrestling, much less the National Wrestling Alliance.
Wow. And you also, at that time, you were managing the first transgender athlete as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was Jamie Senegal. And Jamie's incredible. And I wish that Jamie were still actively wrestling at the moment, but Jamie has gone through a lot of personal changes in terms of like actualizing herself to become the person that she wants to be. So right now she's sort of taking a focus on herself. Shout out to Jamie. I love you so much. I was texting with her a couple days ago, but we were the first duo of our kind. And I want to make it really clear too, because there are people who would probably watch this and be like, that's not true. You're not the first drag personality. What I mean by that is throughout history, Matt, there has been a huge, I don't want to say huge, but an ongoing presence of kind of like men who are male wrestlers in the world of professional wrestling doing little drag shticks, like, oh, they'll show up. There's a very famous one from the National Wrestling Alliance where a future NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Ronnie Garvin, showed up as Miss Atlanta Lively, and it was Ronnie Garvin in drag. When I say that I'm the first drag personality in the world of professional wrestling, what I mean by that is that it was my career. Like, I do this outside of, these occasional appearances, like cross-dressing on television. This is about illusion and about the height of costuming, and it's not done for comedic value to poke fun at a situation. Yeah. This is who I am. This is who I present on TV. And it is a first. There have been other people who've kind of blurred like gender boundaries and certainly played with the femininity or effeminate male character type. But as far as me, like, I'm the first of my kind. And I'm so glad to say that there's a lot of people who are actually starting to follow in those footsteps.
Yeah, no, I think the world is coming to understand more and more, and as far as kind of the differences, the nuances of the world you're in, And there was something I saw recently on a TV show or movie where this woman brought her transgender friends to a drag show, and then she found out afterwards, she realized maybe the two were not the same, and that transgender people may not necessarily love just going to a drag show.
Well, I think that everybody may love going to a drag show,
Yeah,
but
I
I think that the learning curve there is the same thing that I tell people quite often is like, this is a character I play. For the viewers of this show, they've had the opportunity to see me not as this character just a month ago with you. This is the character I play. This is not my identity, right? And there's a distinction for those who want that, like, each one teach one learning moment. This is, I've always lived by this. And a friend of mine, an acquaintance of mine many years ago, Cassandra Cass, who's a well-known transgender showgirl, said to me, drag is what we do, trans is who you are. Yeah. And so what that means to me, drag is what I do, it's not who I am. And whereas transgender or like gender identity would be somebody's, that's who they are. Yeah. And what I also want to make very clear is that because an individual may be trans does not mean they can't do drag, but it doesn't mean they're a drag queen. Yeah. So you can have any gender identity or gender expression and still do drag, because drag is really about transformation. Mm-hmm. So for me, this is a character that I played for a long time, 16 plus years. Wow. This is a character I now get to play in the world of professional wrestling. And I love that, because for me, it's the marriage of my passion for drag as well as my passion and love for professional wrestling. And to get to do it in the National Wrestling Alliance is pretty mind-blowing. They've been pretty conservative over the years. Yeah,
well, for folks that that may not have watched this, or just not quite in the mindset, let's take a look at this little clip for a moment.
The following non-title match is one fall with a 15-minute time limit. Coming at you live straight from the 865, Blount County, Tennessee. Joined by his lovely partner, Pollo Del Mar. This is Thrillbilly Silas.
Thrillbilly Silas, he was so impressive in Knoxville. He's made his way here to the NWA Arena with what he says is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen in Pollo Del Mar.
And you are with Thrillbilly, and you are both now, you are the most controversial couple in wrestling today.
I branded us the most controversial couple in wrestling today. So that's the Thrillbilly Silas Mason and the prettiest girl in the whole darn South, Pollo Del Mar, his lovely lady. And we just got to see our big debut on the flagship program for the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA Power. Yeah. That's a studio environment. So we actually debuted for the National Wrestling Alliance in front of a sold out venue in Knoxville, Tennessee. So talk about like a little bit of a challenging crowd, maybe for someone like myself, but Thrillbilly Silas and I, one of the things that I think struck everybody at National Wrestling Alliance is we do not have a long and storied history together. Before we came together to make our appearance on television, we were not super familiar with one another, but both of us are larger than life personalities, and we both have this tremendous love for professional wrestling. So when we came together, it was something that was like magical, because we're out there to make a name for ourselves, in the National Wrestling Alliance, the oldest continuous professional wrestling organization in the world, right? This is like steeped in tradition. And for us, we are, I think, anything but traditional. So when it comes to being controversial, especially among those very hardcore traditional fans, absolutely, we're very controversial.
Wow. How did it play out? You're in Tennessee, and he's got some crazy eyes, by the way.
He's got crazy everything. He's crazy. Thrillbilly Silas Mason is crazy, Henny. So we were there for 3 days doing television tapings, and by the way, for those of you who are watching this, we will be in St. Louis, Missouri on August 27th and 28th for the NWA 74. It's the big annual pay-per-view. It's 2 days. You can attend live or watch on Fight TV, and join us back in Nashville, Tennessee, 29th through 31st of August for more of our studio television tapings. But, I will say that the audience, when we entered, so when Thrillbilly came out, because you know, Silas comes out first, and the audience sees him and they're like, yeah, because he literally, you know, that's a very relatable character there, and that's a very traditional character. What makes it so non-traditional is the inclusion of me. And at first, I don't think that audience members knew what to make of us. But by the end of that first day in front of Knoxville audiences, if you go over to my my Instagram account, you can scroll through and you may be able to catch some of that. But there's several people who are doing cat calls. Now, I don't care if they're doing cat calls to be rude or cat calls to be, you know, flattering. It didn't matter to me because I elicited a response from them. And I don't know what the audience thought that first day, but by the end of day 3 in the smaller studio tapings, the audience seemed to have fully accepted us. So that's one of the things that's important to me.
You are pushing some boundaries.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that professional wrestling has always done is touch on a lot of hot button topics of whatever generation that it's in. You know, we saw in the 40s and 50s the emergence of Gorgeous George, and this is stuff that for the viewers, if you want to know more, go watch Out in the Ring, that documentary we were doing. You know, we saw the emergence of Gorgeous George, who was this overly flamboyant, rather effeminate type of character. And I think that it touched on a lot of the societal issues that were faced by people then. The idea of like somebody like a Liberace being this tremendous showman, but everybody wanting to turn a blind eye to the obvious. And then, you know, throughout into the early 80s and late 70s, early 80s, there was a performer named Exotic Adrian Street who actually wore his hair very much like this, except it was his real hair. And he very made up, very effeminate, former coal miner from Wales. And he would come to the ring with his female valet. And that pushed a lot of issues and buttons for people. But there's a lot of social commentary involved in the world of professional wrestling, and it's not just around the LGBTQ community. There's racial hot button topics that get addressed. There's ideals and ideas about relating to women's empowerment and advancement of women's rights and the way that women are treated and viewed. So all of these things play out, and in many ways, professional wrestling is often been referred to as like a soap opera for men. But as the audience has expanded beyond just heterosexual men, there's a lot of LGBTQ plus fans who are watching now, and a lot of women and others who actually probably at this point are quite familiar with RuPaul's Drag Race as a cultural and social phenomenon. So having somebody like me on there is like the best of many worlds all rolled in one.
Yeah, it's a good point. But everything you're talking about, you would know. I mean, you've been writing about, you know, pro wrestling for LGBT media, and like I think you write for Pro Wrestling Illustrated and others as well.
At the moment, I largely write. I'm a columnist for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Pro Wrestling Illustrated is the longest running, most established, and most globally recognized printed source of pro wrestling information. As a child growing up, I had a subscription for many, many years. And I've often recounted how when I was in 5th grade, I got a copy of Pro Wrestling Illustrated in my Christmas stocking. And it was a year, a little side story, it was a year that our family was very, very poor. We had gone through some financial issues. My father had lost his job and we were really struggling. And in my Christmas stocking, I received a copy of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. It was my first ever copy of that magazine. And I became immediately obsessed with it. You know, it was like I would wait monthly. Like I got one copy and then I saved up money, and like for my birthday, I think I got a subscription. So it came to my house but I would legitimately run home to like try to read it and get it and look at it. And for people who just click on buttons on the internet now, that's like they're like, what is going on? This person's talking out like crazy. But that was my like love and fascination for that magazine. And that was a long time ago. I promise you, my 5th grade year was a long time ago. And so it was a dream of mine to grow up and write for that magazine. And so now, you know, I am a columnist, not just a contributor. I'm a columnist. So, And ironically, I got to replace the column that was my favorite column when I was growing up. So it's mind-blowing. But before joining Pro Wrestling Illustrated, I have written for countless professional wrestling websites, and I was a celebrity journalist for the Huffington Post for 7 years. And that's where I really started to delve into actively interviewing professional wrestlers or actively writing about the world of professional wrestling. And I think that that's also what jump-started my dream of returning to, this world of professional wrestling, which I had for so long thought I was going to be excluded from because of who I am.
Yeah. Well, you've got an exciting August calendar coming up, but anything else exciting this year that you want to let folks know? Oh
my gosh. So August is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
So just to be very clear, August is the tip of the iceberg. I leave on tour. Like I said, we're going to St. Louis for 3 days, then over to Nashville, Tennessee for 3 days. I fly directly from there to Chicago, Illinois, because I also work with Game Changer Wrestling. And this will be the second year in a row that we return to Chicago for a groundbreaking landmark event that we love in the community, and that is Effie's Big Gay Brunch number 4. So nope, number 5, I think, because this will be my 4th one, so it's got to be 5.
Yeah.
And this event is like, I'm so excited about it because Effie's Big Gay Brunch is a presentation of the best LGBTQ plus professional wrestlers in the world, and it allows an environment for our fans from across the spectrum of identities and sexualities, races, genders, all of those things. All of our people who support and love what we do are given a safe space to come together in one location. So Sunday, September 4th, we are going to be in Chicago, Illinois for Effie's Big Gay Brunch. I am the host of that event, and I'm going to tell you, I'm so excited because for these brunches, like, I'm not an in-ring competitor, Matt. So like, I just present the glamour and like do a little chat and whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing that I've hung my hat on is that for these events, I want to look iconic. I want every look for every show to be iconic so that people like in history, like in the future, will look back and be like, oh, that was Pollo Del Mar at Effie's Big Gay Brunch 3 in Dallas. I dressed like a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader for Dallas earlier this year. Oh, that was Effie's Big Gay Brunch 2 with Pollo Del Mar in Tampa, Florida. I can tell because she had the yellow hair. So I want like every look that I put together for Effie's Big Gay Brunch, specifically because it's for our community.
Yeah.
And those who love us. So I always want to shine and be iconic. And I've got something brewing up for September 4th in Chicago that I think is going to fit the bill.
Wow. I had no idea. I knew that Effie's Big Gay Brunch was a big part of what you do, but I just, I thought it was more of a side thing. I did not know it was all tied in with wrestling as well.
Oh no. Effie's Big Gay Brunch is the biggest, gayest pro wrestling party of the year. Whether that's the biggest, gayest pro wrestling party of the summer, as we're about to do in September 4th in Chicago, or the biggest, gayest pro wrestling event and party of the spring, like we did, I think back in April in Dallas, Texas. So right now we're doing about 2 of these events a year. It started in October 2020 in Indianapolis. So it's a touring event, and Effie's Big Gay Brunch will tour to different locations depending on Game Changer Wrestling, which is sort of like the umbrella under which we produce this event. And Game Changer Wrestling will often do these events called The Collective, which will be a large number of pro wrestling shows during the course of a weekend, built in conjunction or sort of piggybacking on kind of huge industry events like WrestleMania in Dallas, which we did earlier, or I think it's All Out that's coming up in September in Chicago. So we will often travel, and then this Big Gay Brunch is the final show of our weekend. And it happens 11 a.m. in the morning, which is kind of crappy for a drag queen like myself after an entire weekend of wrestling shows and partying with my friends and touring. So, but nevertheless, it is going to be back in Chicago, Illinois, and it's our first time returning to a venue too. So like traditionally we've done they kicked off in Indianapolis. Then I joined in Tampa for April 2021. Then we went to Chicago last fall, then Dallas. Now we're back to Chicago. So I will tell you, it's remarkable to be in an environment like that, because I will say that I've been very fortunate to work mostly with companies where I feel very embraced, very accepted.
Yeah.
But there is something entirely different as both a fan and a performer for an event like Effie's Big Gay Brunch, where our community is celebrated and where our community takes the center stage. You know, like one of the things that Effie has said about Big Gay Brunch is that this is an opportunity for our fans, no matter what they identify as, to be comfortable and confident being entirely authentically themselves in a pro wrestling environment, which might not traditionally embrace that.
Yeah.
And it is an opportunity for the best and brightest LGBTQ plus pro wrestling talent in the world to showcase our skills, redefine and defy stereotypes, and prove that we're no longer content just being the side act. Honey, we are the main event.
There is no doubt in my mind where your passion lies.
I love it. Again, like I'm getting to live the best of all my worlds.
Yeah.
With an event like Effie's Big Gay Brunch, September 4th in Chicago, like that. Oh, by the way, and viewers, if you can't be with us in Chicago, join us and watch it on Fight TV, Effie's Big Gay Brunch. Or if you can't be with the National Wrestling Alliance in St. Louis or in Nashville, you can watch the St. Louis stuff on Fight TV, or just tune in to the NWA YouTube channel to watch all of the content that we filmed during our TV tapings. But with something like Big Gay Brunch, it combines like a lot of my passions, my love, an intense love for pro wrestling, my intense and, storied career in drag comes to the forefront, as well as the LGBTQ plus community, because I've been actively involved in our community for all of my adult life. Like I legitimately, as soon as I came out, became hyper active within the LGBTQ queer community. And so for me, something like a Big Gay Brunch, which in its own right is kind of landmark, right? Like catering towards the queer wrestling fans with a almost entirely queer cast and team of professional wrestlers. Those things are like, that's also groundbreaking. And the fact that I'm able to be part of something like that, such a blessing. It's such a blessing.
I love that. Well, there's going to come a time when you and I are going to connect in that real world. Maybe it'll be over a Big Gay Brunch here coming up soon. Not this one. I can't go to Chicago then.
I'm going to be Del Mar, and I'll just be like, I'll grab you in a headlock. I'll be like, get in.
I can take it.
Oh my God. I'll be gentle with you. Like the people that, like I traditionally, I'm a gentle, delicate flower. I'm on the outside just cheering on the Thrillbilly up at the NWA. We're trying to get a new water heater from mama's trailer. That's all we're trying to do. But other places, I am the manager of Champions, Pollo Del Mar, and she's rather fearless.
Yeah.
And so I'm jumping in the ring and I'm getting like beat downs and I'm beating people down. I lost my tooth over it. I got a cracked rib right now. But when I get you in that side headlock, put a headlock on your heart, Matt, I'll be a little more gentle.
We're going to have a good time together. No, this is amazing. And I really appreciate the fact that you were able to take some moments of your time just to kind of not only share your story, but to show us who you really are.
Well, I love it. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share my art, my love and passion for pro wrestling, the exciting events that are coming up in the future. And, I don't know. I feel very, very grateful. I'm very blessed to have the opportunity to do what I love, to do it in front of an audience, to travel the country and the world doing it. And to, I think in some small way, I hope, make a difference for the people who come along after us, because the reality is that I could have been doing wrestling a long time ago. if I thought wrestling would accept someone like me. And I'm not talking about the me that you're seeing right here, but I mean the me that's under this.
Yeah.
If I thought the world of professional wrestling would accept me for who I am and see me as a valuable contributor, I would probably have pursued my dreams a lot sooner.
Yeah.
So my optimism is that some kid who's like 10 years old or whatever and starting to realize that he, she, they are different is going to see something like Big Gay Brunch or me or Effie or any number of the incredible LGBTQ plus talent that I know personally and consider friends and say like, maybe I'll do that. That seems like a lot of fun. They seem like they're having a lot of fun and get to be authentic to who they are. And that's important.
Yeah, no, well put. Well, thank you again for everything. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
I appreciate you having me. Bye.
Bye.
And it feels good, so good, coming back.